recording and admit your people.
Who started it? Okay.
All right, Jerry.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Mr. Secretary, would you call the roll, please?
Ludwig,
Here.
Robinson, not here. Delvecchio, not here. Gordon or Goodman, rather. Goodman's also not here. Whitaker,
Here.
Page,
Here.
Dreyer.
Here.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move.
Second,
I'll second.
Okay.
Page seconds.
thank you, John. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
First item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from 1937. We have them here. Any additions for the October, in additions or corrections to October minutes, please?
I have a few.
Go ahead.
Amanda?
Page 13, line 5, difficult to plow should be difficult to see out.
For the record, let the record reflect that Diana Robinson has joined the meeting.
Noted.
If you could note it, thank you.
Yep.
Sorry.
Amanda?
All right, go back to the minutes. Thank you, Amanda.
Page 15, line 25, should be is a modern addition. Page 17, line 17, was a fountain. Page 21, line 7, set should be stuff,
I'm sorry, what was the, it should be what?
should be stuff instead of the word set.
Okay, thank you.
Page 32, line 11, 52 Varena should be 42 Varena.
Hmm.
And page 35, line 24 should be Christopher Brandt, B as in boy, R-A-N-D-T,
Not Brad. Okay.
and not Michael. It was Michael Bratt, so.
Mhm.
Also, I had on page 43, line 24, Jeff, was that spelled correctly? And the same thing on line Frisch?
And it's Jeff with a J.
Okay,
how it's spelled.
great,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay, any other corrections to,
Page 33, line 3, it's Peter Tolliver, not Dean Tolliver.
any other corrections? Okay, motion to approve is corrected.
I'll move. Amanda Dreer.
Second,
I'll second.
thank you, David. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, minutes of October are approved. November 18th. Corrections, please?
I had a few. Page 3, line 8, destination should be designation. Page 6, line 6, it says Scoot Mackenzie's. This is across from 2369 East. Is that correct? Does anyone know?
Probably Scott. That would be my guess.
What page is that, Amanda?
That's page 6, line 6.
6. Okay. It McKen, that is the right, yes,
That's correct?
correct.
Scoot?
Okay,
The old Mackenzie house. It's no longer the Mackenzie house, but it was at one time.
page 7, line 10, 69 Latta should be 69 Glen.
Mhm.
And page 12, line 21, destination should be designation.
Mhm.
Page 18, line 16, John Hershey should be Don Hershey.
Yep.
And that's the same correction on page 21, line 23. And page 25, line 4, Boyden should be Boynton, Boynton.
Also on page 24, line 6, 333 should be 3333.
Yep.
And page 25, line 4, ice damage should be ice damming.
Mhm.
Any other?
Yeah, page 23, line 13. I believe you meant to say the Norrie House, Nory, and not Norrit. And line 14, the house number is 3345, not 345. And on page, line 23, the same page, it's Lambert, not Lamberg House.
Thank you. Any other additions or corrections? Motion to approve?
John
As
Page, I'll
corrected.
make the motion.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second it again.
Whitaker,
Whitaker.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Minutes stand approved. Appreciate that. Was this meeting duly advertised?
The meeting was properly advertised in the Daily Record of February 10th, 2022.
Thank you. That meeting is duly advertised will now be held. We have no communications, no designation of landmarks. We do have a certificate of appropriateness, 2H-01-22, application of David Lee, owner of property at 1140 Clover Street, tax number 137.08-1-34, for a certificate of appropriateness to install a generator. Is there anyone here to speak on that?
That would be me, Jeff Carlucci.
Very good. Would you just spell your name for the record and then,
Yes, my last name is spelled Carlucci.
very good.
First name Jeff, Jeff.
Thank you. And just tell us what you want to do. Or
So-
what you've done.
Yes, yeah, there was a bit of a communication blunder and we did install the generator already. And this, we found out afterwards, this was considered a historic property. We did place the generator within the parameters of Brighton's town codes, as far as rear of the house only. In fact, it was not only rear of the house, it was rear of the garage. And there is still plenty of footage between the property line, the side setback, and the right side of the generator. There's much more than 10 feet. So we did place it within those parameters, but we just failed to get approval first somehow.
Okay. Anyone else? Any other comments from you?
Nope, it's there. It passed electrical inspection. And I believe the electrical inspector did send the town of Brighton a copy of the electrical inspection certificate as well.
Very good. Thank you. Ramsey or Jeff, any comments from you?
Does it meet all the code requirements that are those 5 feet from all windows, doors, and entries, and 18 inches from the structure?
Absolutely.
you will need to come in and get a building permit.
That's fine.
And if you would have come in and got the building permit, we would have told you that it was a historical preservation property.
Correct.
So keep that in mind.
Yes. Yeah, this was originally handled. I'm not actually the one who pulls permits. We have a permit guy who is set to do that. But there was an issue with requests, like application requests going to the spam mail at the town of Brighton, as well as him having COVID and being out for a while at the same time. So apparently that's where the miscommunication happened.
Okay.
Is there
Thank you.
anyone else here tonight to speak of this?
Nope, this is just me.
Okay,
Can I ask, do we have a picture of what because it's already installed, do we have a picture of what it looks like?
I don't have one handy. I don't get those pictures when they're done, but that's what it looked like beforehand. And right where you see those boards, those pieces of plywood up against the siding, that's where the generator is.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
did
I
not,
can always send a picture as well, like tomorrow or something.
did the installer Generac, did they not apply for a permit?
It wouldn't be Generac, it would be us, Home Power Systems.
Oh, okay,
We did apply for it, and for some reason
okay,
it was thought that we had permission, and we found out afterwards we did not. We didn't obtain a permit. And we didn't know about the historical property thing, and that's just because of the email blunder and the miscommunication with Matt being out with COVID.
okay, very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
They did call us and let us know what happened.
Any comments from the commission?
Jerry, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, John, you first.
So the application, if it had been turned in on time, is what I would expect to see. It's certainly in a location that I have no problem with. So even though it's late, thank you for aggregating all the information.
That's no problem. And again, if you guys would like a picture of the finished product, I can get that sent over to you tomorrow.
Jerry,
Okay.
if I might, this is Ken Gordon. I'm the town attorney, Mr. Carlucci. If you could, just for the record, please let us know the name of your company, its address, and your position with the company.
Yes. The name of the company is Home Power Systems. The address is 1127 Corporate Drive East, Farmington, New York, 14425. And then I'm the project manager for the Rochester area.
And I know you've said this, but just to be clear, it is your company that installed the generator at 1140 Clover Street.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Then I would like to close the public hearings.
Jerry, you need to open it up to the public.
I already, yeah,
Did you?
I thought I already said that.
Okay, sorry.
He asked if there was anyone else on the Zoom call who wanted to speak.
Okay, all right.
Um,
I stand corrected.
I'd like to close the hearings, and Ken, do you have a resolution?
I do have a proposed resolution, and it reads as follows. Whereas application number 2H-01-22 has been submitted for a certificate of appropriateness under the town's historic preservation law for improvement to property located at 1140 Clover Street, owned by David Lee, L-E-E, to perform work described as the installation of a generator. And whereas the Historic Preservation Commission duly called a public hearing to consider the matter on February 24th, 2022. And whereas the necessary legal notice has been published and the required sign posted pursuant to town code. And whereas the public hearing was held and all persons having an interest in such matters having had an opportunity to be heard therein. And whereas the Historic Preservation Commission hereby determines that pursuant to the factors set forth in section 224-5 of the town code, that the proposed above described work to the subject property is consistent with the purposes of the town's historic preservation law and compatible with the property's historic character based upon its review of the application and documents on file and received at the public hearing and the testimony presented at the public hearing. It is hereby resolved that the Historic Preservation Commission hereby receives and files the above described application and the papers submitted therewith. And it is further resolved that the Historic Preservation Commission hereby approves the application number 2H-01-22 for a certificate of appropriateness for the above described work to be performed at the property located at 1140 Clover Street in the town of Brighton.
Thank you, sir. May I have someone to put forth the motion, please?
I'll put the motion forward. It's John Page.
Thank you, John. May I have a second?
I'll second.
I'll second, Diana.
Thank you, Diana. Any discussion? Mr. Secretary, would you call for a vote?
Ludwig,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes,
Whitaker,
yes,
Page,
Yes,
Strayer.
Yes.
Very good. Motion passes. I think that the artwork behind the garage should be donated to the Memorial Art Gallery. That said, we have no hardship application. Public hearings are closed. New business.
Thank you very
Properties-
much.
Welcome.
Thank you.
New business properties to be surveyed and updated. I think Ramsey suggested earlier that maybe we postpone this to the next meeting when we have a full house. There is a list of properties, Mary Jo, on the Council Rock Estates neighborhood. And we've got quite a list. I drove by it again yesterday and my heavens,
There you go.
wonderful, wonderful properties, mid-century ranch houses and split levels. I think what we probably should do is, Mary Jo, if there's anyone very well known that has lived in any of these houses, that might be a tiebreaker. Little research there on your part. But they're all wonderful houses, and I think I noticed one had already succumbed to replacement windows, but there are others that have done very little to the exterior since they were built, other than being maintained. So I urge all of you to go by, take a look, and perhaps our next meeting, we can designate at least one to be surveyed.
Can I ask a question, Jerry?
Sure.
What is the significance of Highland and Highland Architects from Buffalo? I apologize, I'm not familiar with them, but I saw them
Well, I have
listed.
to say, I don't know either.
No, and I didn't know either. That was what was on the permit for that house. 47 Zachary. But it looks so much like other Don Hershey houses. That's why we included it on the list. Tracy
Okay.
Major pulled it from the, in the Public Works Department.
Okay, thank you.
You should know also that right now there's a Thomas W. Boyd Jr. project underway with funds from the Rochester Area Community Foundation and the Greece Historical Society. Christopher Brandt and Katie Cummo, at least has been, working on identifying the Thomas W. Boyd houses in town. So perhaps those first two on our list, 240 Thackeray and 321 Council Rock, could be among those surveyed first, perhaps.
Are
It's
they-
interesting because Cynthia Houck sent a thing around, and maybe it originated with Chris Brandt. I'm not sure, but anyway, there's an interior of one of the two Boyd houses that is pretty much as it was built, and it is incredible, just
Mhm.
incredible. So if you haven't seen that link, please let me know or email Cynthia, and there are wonderful photos of the house when it was built, and
Mhm.
it just all of these are pretty spectacular on the outside for sure, but that's the one that was documented on the inside. So, and of course, we don't have any control over what goes on the inside, but it's a spectacular house. So
Are they doing any work as part of this project? Are they doing any surveys or any work that may alleviate the need for us just to spend money on surveying one?
I think so, Amanda. I got an intern from Geneseo who's working with me this semester, and part of her project is to work with the Thomas Boyd
Okay.
project. They needed to have a public historian on their list in order to get the grant. And so they reached out to me, and I had the Geneseo intern. But she's going to be doing a lot of data entry, and I think that's going to include things like information about from the permits and so forth. So we may be a little bit further ahead on these houses from that. I don't know. They're still waiting for additional funds and to get this underway.
but Amanda, are you talking about, are they working on the physical properties right now, which may make them threatened? Is that what you were?
No, I was asking if this project, if they're doing research and they're putting
Oh, okay.
profiles together or even surveys that we may be able to access as opposed to us spending the money to have it surveyed. I didn't know to what extent the project was.
Yeah, no, that'd be, if there was enough information and we felt comfortable with it,
Mhm.
we could, designate more, but if they haven't gotten that going yet, it's not gonna be very much help right now, but let's keep our eyes and ears open about
I
it.
will keep you up to date on their project.
Thank you. Now, I sent around, some of you are probably familiar with the matrix that I sent around, half a dozen years ago, maybe longer. And I thought this is a handy tool to look at any house that we might be considering designating or even having a survey on. It sort of takes some of the emotional asides out of, well, this is a great house, I love it type situation. So basically you look at each house, okay, historic value, cultural, and tonight I think we're talking about Varena Drive as well. So certainly, as far as that Varena Drive goes, it would be somewhat to definitely having a historic value there. Historic personages, well, I think it goes between known, unknown, and known. We're not absolutely sure if it was the first Black family-owned house in Brighton. Architectural style, well, we haven't had a whole lot of detail on that yet. Architect, designer, maybe, probably not in that particular house. And then threatened, is it threatened? So these are, and then this is just something I came up with one day out of having nothing else to do, but it does kind of quantify how we look at places, and I thought it might be handy to review it again. Welcome to comments.
Yeah, thank you, Jerry. This has some similarities to national guidelines for how to consider things. I think it's good to have something like this just as a checklist, but it would be hard, I think, to come up with some sort of system where you said that a building had to have a particular score in order to be considered. Because some of these, in some ways, they're not equivalent. Like number 1 and number 5, I don't think, are equivalent. Number 5 is sort of an add-on piece. But anyway, it's, what we typically look at are 1, 2, and 3, and a little bit 4, and then we add on the number 5 there. So, but if you were to come up with something that said you had to have a score of 9 or something like that in order to be considered, I think, like, if you for the Varena house, if you get a 3 on number 1, that in this instance, with all the particulars, that might qualify it in and of itself, based on our criteria in the law and how we've been looking at things.
Well, this was not meant to be an end all to be all, but if you had two properties, having a limited budget, as we do, if you had two properties, this might be able to make a decision between the two.
Yeah, it's also would be useful in that way in terms of managing the properties that we look at and what order that they're looked at, for sure.
Okay. Any other new business that we need to talk about? We've already, I believe, settled on the 2 or 3. I guess we have 1 survey and 2 updates to be used under this year's budget or last year's budget. And then,
And we have those going, yep.
yep. And then perhaps in our next meeting, we will settle on at least 1 to be surveyed. And if there's another one to be updated right away, we could decide on that.
Are we going to talk about 42 Varena tonight?
I'd like to.
Sure, we can certainly do that. Oh, yes, here it is. Thank you.
Based on the preliminary information that we had, and then supplemented with this information that has been provided, I think this is an excellent property to consider, and I would be in favor of starting the process, frankly.
I was impressed with Christopher Brandt's survey.
Yes, I agree. I think the history of Mr. Tolliver, he certainly, in my mind, comes to as a historic personage, a significant person that I think would warrant, whether or not we know for sure this was the first home owned by a Black family, or we think the first home owned by a Black family in the 20th century, in recent times. I think it's still, even without that certainty, I think it still merits designation.
Other comments?
I think it's worth pursuing.
Mary
So-
Jo, have you spoken with the owners?
Not I, no. Mr. Brandt did.
Oh, and how, do you have any information on how that went?
No, that it was included in here in the, I believe, he talked to his son, talked to Peter Tolliver's son, I believe.
Okay. Could we slide over to that portion of the survey?
I read that somewhere. Yeah. That's it. It's gotta be in. Obituaries now.
Well, it's interesting, the last paragraph there. Peter and Yvonne Tolliver were more than just the quote unquote first, and I guess quote, I'm not quite sure. I think we have to be careful that how this reads. Were believed perhaps to be the first Black homeowners, unless it's been definitively proved. Mary Jo?
No, as I told you, I think a couple of months ago, we did have some Black homeowners in the 19th century, but I'm not aware of any in the 20th century. But people who were living in Brighton, who were African American, were servants for the most part in the early part of the 20th century. They were not homeowners.
Any thoughts on a motion here to start the designation process?
I would like to do that.
Very good. Thank you, John.
Good.
I
Ken, do you have,
will second it.
Ken, do you have a motion?
I think that we can have a simple motion to direct
Yes.
the Secretary of the Commission to send a letter to initiate the process of designation.
Very good. We have a motion. We have a second. Jeff, would you call the roll, please?
Yep. Ludwig,
Yes.
Robinson,
yes,
Whitaker,
Yes,
Page,
Yes,
Greer.
Yes,
Okay, motion passes. Jeff, you can send the letter or start the process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other new business?
so
Roll.
can I just follow up on what you were discussing, Jerry and Mary Jo? Do you want to ask Christopher Brandt to clarify the last sentence or the last paragraph?
I'll leave that up to Mary Jo and our town attorney.
Okay,
Well, I think a clarification might not be a bad idea. What do you think, Mary Jo? I mean, I think what Amanda said was that there are other reasons, but we want to try to be factual with what we know
Okay.
would be the reason we want to maybe do that as a thought.
yeah,
I
I
will
think it'd be good to just sort of take that, because it isn't the criteria that's tipping the scales for me, because it's partly because this whole, it's one of the conditions of the situation that we're trying to understand, is that it's by its nature murky.
Yes.
And so it's less important whether it's first or whether it's 19th or 20th century. It's that it was unusual and difficult, and there was perseverance, and then by people that were, doing great work also. So
Yep.
that's what I find, most interesting about it.
I will bring you what I find next month about Black ownership in Brighton. If I can find anything, I'll bring you what I can find.
And would
I
you have a conversation with Chris about that also?
Okay.
And maybe when you have that conversation, ask whether he thinks it's appropriate to fold that into the discussion in a sentence or two or something like that, or more.
My
Um,
only, my
should
only
we hold
concern-
off till next month until that's straightened out?
Oh, I think we can proceed, David. My only concern was in the verbiage of that last paragraph. I think putting the word reportedly or thought to be, or something like that, rather than a definitive statement, rather saying that they were, because who knows? In 5 years, we may find out something else.
I got to
Yeah.
process check a little bit. That report needs to go to the property owners. I need to send that to them as part of this process.
Yep.
And I need it to be the report that you guys want sent to them. I think accuracy in the report is important. But I think giving it some consideration, what David said about pausing, getting the report correct the way we want it, because it's a good report. I think it tells a good story.
Yes.
There's not a lot else we're wanting to have changed, but I think it's an important part of this discussion. And if it's something we are discussing, we should include it in there. If it's going to be discussed. And I think I don't want to get into an argument with a property owner saying, hey, they weren't. How do you know? If
Right.
they read that report, they come into town hall thinking, hey, this is what I read.
Good point.
I'm a stickler though, so I know what Ken's thinking.
No, there's nothing. Thank you, Ramsey. Good point.
Well, that's why I brought it up.
Thank you,
Yeah,
David.
no, I thought you had a good point, David.
Could I see the paragraph again, please?
It is.
There really isn't the discussion, the information that Mary Jo presented to us about the 19th century and the 20th century is not in the report. There's not a lot of discussion about whether or not they were the first Black homeowners.
But that's
And
referring to
is this paragraph that reads or starts, Peter and Yvonne Tolliver were more than just, quote, the first, end quote, Black homeowners in the town of Brighton, period. Is there any other discussion in the report about Peter and Yvonne being the first Black homeowners?
Mary Jo's report sentence was, at the time, they were believed to be the first.
Yes.
Different way of phrasing what we're trying to say.
Diana, I think that's probably a good way to rephrase that last paragraph. We're believed to be.
Ramsey, would you be sending Mary Jo's report as well as Mr. Brandt's report?
That's a good question. I'm obligated, I don't have my code book in front of me, but I'm obligated, I believe, to send them. And generally, I probably would. I send them everything we got that's for the review, to answer your question, the more I think about it. Because it's the information that we would be using to determine if it's worthy of designation.
So I see that Jeff probably has sort of found the sort of qualifying statement here, and that the subsequent statement is
Yeah, I'm trying.
more saying that isn't the reason to celebrate, that isn't the reason to celebrate them, that they were the first, but that these other things. And this is more in line with what Mary Jo's report said.
I think if there's concern, asking the architectural historian to revise their survey, if there's concern that we would be exerting improper influence, I think perhaps it could be phrased to Mr. Brandt. Would you address the issue? Would you elaborate on the statement in the first line of that paragraph where he says the first in quotes? Would you explain that? Would you elaborate on that? That would be a question. Would that, Ken, might that be proper?
Right, so I think the board is obligated to transmit to the homeowner what it will be relying on, and I understand that it would rely upon this report and Mary Jo's report, so I would think you would transmit both. Going to your question, Amanda, I'm also concerned about exerting undue influence. We should not be telling our experts what they should put in their reports. They are experts to report to you, and then you draw your conclusions from the reports. It is, I do think, permissible to ask the architectural historian if he would perhaps provide a citation for this fact that he states, or otherwise qualify it if he does not have a citation for it.
And I think that it is appropriate for us not to direct anything other than but it is
Clarify.
appropriate for us to have a dialogue if there's something that we have a question about.
Yeah, if he says something in the report, as he says here, that does not have a footnote citation to it, and there is none here, then I think it is appropriate to ask for the source of that fact that he states. He states it as a fact rather than as a supposition.
But Kenny puts it in quotation marks, which to me sounds like he's using the first, meaning that's what everybody says about the Tollivers, that they were the first Black homeowners. But
then that should be explained by him as
Yes,
to why he put
I
it in
understand.
quotation marks. We should not assume what he means by doing that.
right,
But I don't think this requires a delay in our process. I mean, unless I'm mistaken, this sounds like something that can be corrected in a matter of days, not a matter of weeks or months.
I agree.
Who would be making that request? Would it be Jeff, Ramsey? Who would be making that request?
I can make that request.
It should be Ramsey.
Okay.
Well, if it is Ramsey, then where does this leave us in our process of notifying, sending this to the homeowners? Should we wait, as David suggested, until we get this clarified before we proceed?
I'm prepared to proceed partly because we have so few opportunities to get things done, and we'd like to keep moving them out so that we can get 3 or 4 in a year to better represent the fine architectural history that we have in our town.
Well, I agree, John, but on the other hand, I would sort of like to get everything in a row before we I guess I would rather resolve this before we send it to the homeowner rather than oh, yes, I'm sorry, it wasn't this way, it was supposed to be that way at some later date. That's all.
I agree with Jerry that that when we send it to the homeowner, it should be the final version, if there's been any additions. But I don't know if we need to meet before that is sent. Like, do we need to see it again before it's sent? We're not approving it. It's not a document we're approving. We're relying on it.
Well, the house isn't going anywhere, as far as we know. So I'll leave that up to.
If I could just interject here, I cannot set forth all of the possible responses that Mr. Brandt might have to the request by Ramsey for citation or qualification of the statement, but some possible responses might be, I'll simply delete the sentence, or an appropriate qualification, or I did some research and the statement is not true, or no, I'm leaving it just like it is. So I do think it's important for the board to know what that response is before it's sent to the homeowner, because your decision is going to be based on that. And I empathize with what, John, you're saying to move the process along, but prudence might dictate a motion to reconsider to hold off on this.
Thank
Well,
you.
it does state earlier in the statement, it says, is believed to be the first instance of African American. It simply used the same terminology,
That,
is
that's,
believed to be.
that's
Okay,
for running
let's,
for town supervisor.
I suggest we don't beat this together to death tonight and
No.
follow along with the town attorney's suggestions.
Jeff,
And
where did you see that reference? I'm sorry, you were saying something? I'm sorry, Jerry. Before we,
Oh, it says its candidacy for town supervisor, the one successful, is believed to be the first instance of an African-American denizen in the suburbs of Rochester running for town supervisor.
which says nothing about being the first Black homeowner.
Correct.
Right.
okay. Just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Jerry, didn't mean to, just before we ended this conversation, I just wanted to be clear of what I was gonna do.
Thank you. Any other new business or old business, excuse me?
I'm sorry, I have to interpose here. We have had a motion and a second and a vote directing the secretary to send the letter. You now seem to, or at least some of the members seem to have changed their mind. It is right now the direction of this board that the secretary send the letter. If you wish to give some different direction, you need to have a motion to reconsider, reconsider that direction that you've given to the secretary of the commission. Cannot
Or
just.
make it subject to verification.
Well, I'd say a little further, make it, rescind the motion and we wait until this issue is clarified, and then we can make the motion at our next meeting. That would be my suggestion.
You're the chair.
Any
Is there a
thoughts
motion?
to rescind the motion? Okay. Could I have a motion to rescind the motion to send, to start the process?
I'll move to rescind the motion directing the secretary to send a letter.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Do we have to name a reason?
No?
Okay.
No.
A second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Could we
Okay,
please have a
motion is-
roll call on this?
Okay, very good.
Dreyer,
Yes.
Page,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Ludwig.
Yes. Okay, motion is rescinded until we get clarification on the last paragraph. Any other old business? We have no presentations, no announcements. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Nobody does it, I will. I'll
Thank
make
you,
the motion.
David. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Amanda. All in favor?
Aye.
I
Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you. David, thanks for making it. It was a nice surprise.
You're welcome.
Weren't
Thanks.
expecting you.
Mhm.
The benefits of Zoom. Everyone, thank you.
Aye.
Thanks, everyone.